Hello and welcome to Data Planet. I'm Emma Davis, and today's guest is Charles Lim, Head of Brand and Communications at PartnerStack. Welcome to the show, Charles.
Thanks for having me.
So to start, give us some background on PartnerStack. Who are your customers and what do you do for them?
Yeah, so PartnerStack, our mission is to change the way the world sells software. We do that through partnerships. I think, like if I were just to say, like what we want to be known for, or I guess our brand, I think first one is our platform. So we have like a very modern PRM, which is a partner relationship management platform, handles payments, handles all sorts of like partner management. Um, It's very modern, it's very flexible, it's ready for the AI age. So it's enabled with AI. I'd say the second thing is our network. So we have the biggest B2B SaaS network. It's got around 135,000 active partners. So partners like getting commissions. We
Mhm.
also have 600 vendors or customers or ISVs or software companies that are in there too. So that's our network. And I'd say the third thing, and part of what I'm here at PartnerStack for is our content. So I'd say like we are the ones kind of waving the flag of this is partnerships. This is kind of the industry. We want to educate you. We want to level everybody up. We do that through our customer stories. We do that through just pinging the people inside of this industry, so experts and subject matter experts, and also our own data. So we aggregate and our own data from our own network and share that, so people can modify or augment their tactics for that in partnerships.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And let's get a little bit deeper briefly into what a partnership is. So you're talking about two different businesses who are referring business to each other, who are using each other's services. Like, is there a specific structure of partnership that you help facilitate?
Yeah, there's all sorts of and I'd say something that PartnerStack sticks out for is just we handle all sorts of partner types. I think they fall into probably three main categories that people tend to talk about. One of them is like the marketing buyer or like affiliates. So these are people who are driving traffic using links. So for example, YouTubers, link in bio kind of thing, and we facilitate the tracking of that and the payment of that. I'd say the second thing is referrals. So people using, let's say, like a promo code or something where you pass you pass a lead along, right? So referral, I feel like everybody knows that, and then of course you take a cut on that. And then the more complex one I'd say is like the reseller one. So not only are driving the sale, but you're also very involved in it. You probably invoice for it. It's a very kind of like a high touch service thing that you would do for the actual customer.
And what stage are your customers at when they arrive at PartnerStack? Do they have some partnership framework in one of those three buckets or some combination of those three buckets and it's just getting out of hand? They need a better way to manage it? Or are they, hey, I'm looking to explore this as a potential revenue stream and I want to get started with someone who can help me, manage that infrastructure from the get-go? Where are most customers coming in?
Yeah, I'd say it definitely ranges. I'd say a couple of years back or before, it would be much more of people kind of exploring it and trying to understand. Like, I've heard of partnerships. I heard this is an opportunity for us. Like, let's explore that. So they don't necessarily have partners. They don't have like a partner program set up. I'd say our most successful people or people as we move up market and we are definitely moving towards the enterprise market. They're definitely more sophisticated. So they probably have dabbled in one or more partner types and they're looking to expand that. I think that the big promise though of partnerships is typically you either have started it or dabbled in it and you're just trying to start to scale it up. Like basically you probably manage it in some sort of spreadsheet and you're like, I actually need a tool for this. I'm losing my mind
Yeah.
here trying to pay these people and I'm not sure how much I owe them. Or you've hit like a ceiling. So you have revenue targets, things like for example, like direct or like outbound is like, oh, it's we kind of hit a ceiling on CAC here. I'm not sure what we should do here. Well, partnerships is something that's a little bit more efficient, right? It's more predictable to set up. So that's when they'd come to us. So there's different pain points that people would have, but that's typically what we see when they come to us.
Awesome. And so do you help your customers find the right partners for them to be their, their affiliates, influencers, their partner, you help them, you help make those connections. And then also, once the connection's made, help turn that into a working relationship.
Yes, exactly. And we do that through our platform. We do that through our network. I think there's a lot of opportunities now, and with AI visibility, with the AI era, there's lots of things that partnerships just inherently. So, for example, a lot of our partners in our network, they're publishers, right? So they do already have existing citations. So if you are a like a software vendor, you can kind of you can tap into that, as opposed to kind of starting from scratch, or building your own platform to kind of sell that, right? So yeah. That's kind of where PartnerStack comes in. It's a complex space, as you can imagine. I'm trying to define it in a way that kind of makes sense for the audience. But like I would say, a lot of partnerships take on different they take on different shapes and sizes and
Mm-hmm.
nomenclatures, and depending on the vertical or how people tend to get paid out, and things like that. So it tends to get a little bit sophisticated.
Okay. And then my last question, interrogating you about PartnerStack
Yeah.
specifically. Um, what is your sweet spot, like ICP? What are the customers you really like to work with? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, all of your customers, if you're a PartnerStack customer, you're valued and loved no matter what industry you're in. And but like, who are you targeting with your own outreach?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I can frame it less about like who we're targeting, and more like who will probably find the best kind of success, or
Hmm.
who's like a really good match.
Hmm.
And I'd say they're probably mid market to enterprise. They're people who have kind of understand what they're going to market with, and they're looking to scale that using partnerships. I think that's kind of where we can help them the most. So whether it's, here are all the features that we have in our platform that help you scale all of that, or here are all the partners in our network that you can tap into to help scale all that also.
Awesome. All right. Um, I want to talk about you a little bit more, Charles. So your background is in this sort of like brand and tech overlap. What do you look at to understand what's working on the brand and communications team?
Yeah, like on the team.
Yeah, or like in
Yeah,
your experience in brand and communications, but also knowing you have this technical background and interest.
yeah. I'd say on the team that and we can probably get into kind of measurement later, but I would say team definitely strikes me because it's like I've worked in a lot of different kind of environments. I started my career as a designer who codes, I guess. So as you can imagine, at that time, like when the iPhone came out, like I was very well positioned to kind of help move along this digital transformation that's still happening, I guess. Um, so I used to be agency side. I think something there is like, in terms of teams, they tend to expand and contract based on how much business you guys have. I worked in the travel and luxury and hospitality space a lot. So working across like different clients, I feel like a lot of that is connecting dots, and you tend to have, like, in terms of production, you tend to have people who are just really good at certain crafts and things like that.
Hmm.
As I moved into client side or tech, I think it's relatively the same, but the thing that remains is kind of like you want to use the right tool for the job, let's say. So there's people who are very good at certain things, and they just kind of hone that skill over many years, and you mix them with people who actually can measure really well, which isn't a thing that really happens in agency. It's more like, you tend to have problems like, oh, why do we do it this way? Because it's like, oh, we've always just done it this way, right? Because they're kind of being led by whatever the client kind of does, right? I think when you're client side, it's much more important to find the insights and know what drives that insight. And okay, now I'm applying the people and skill sets to be able to elevate that. Yeah. So I would say in terms of team, those are the skills I kind of look for, is like they've just been around the block and they know really their skill set really well. I think for a brand team, it tends to fall into three kind of categories. One of them is like content for sure, like being able to craft a narrative, being able to tease out what the original insight or research is, and string that into a story that like people can understand. That's of course that's an important skill. That's kind of what we're doing here. I would say the other one is design. So as opposed to say, let's say like a hardcore product UX design thing, there's much more of a I think things change a lot more in kind of marketing and how people tend to want to use things or what kind of subverts their expectations. So I think there's a lot more play there, especially crossing B2C or B2B.
Huh.
There's definitely some interesting things there. So you want people that have kind of worked across a lot of different verticals in a lot of different environments, a lot of different channels, that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
I'd say the third one is much more kind of rooted in what's modern or what's let's say standards, which is the technical side. So you just those are the things where it's like you want something that's instrumented properly. You want a website that works on mobile. You want to be able to show up in AI search, things like that, and you want to be able to basically make sure that everything is running, and when it fails, at least you have a plan to get out of that.
Yeah.
So those are the three things: content, design, tech. I think that you can kind of apply that, and in my experience, you can apply that to a lot of different problems, and it kind of just scales, especially with the mindset of like right tool for the job. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And what's interesting about that, so I won't get into the like, let's debate the agency versus client side, and I don't necessarily agree with what you said about agency stuff. Maybe it was just not as great an agency as some others might be.
yeah.
Um, but it's interesting when you're talking about the content, design, and tech. At least with the content and design, like nothing that you said so far is this specific revenue outcome or this specific ROI or anything. It's very much um like subjective, but expertly subjective. Like, you have to have the expertise to know, did we effectively tell that story? Did we get that design across? Are we standing out? And then obviously the technical might be a little more objective. I find even that is not necessarily the case where something can function the way you want it to. That doesn't make it a good user experience, or that doesn't mean it's without friction or problems that um, you may not know until you actually test it. Um, at what point in your prioritization within PartnerStack do those outcomes translate into growth for PartnerStack, where like it's not just that we created good content, that we designed good stuff, that the tech is working, but that like, aha, this is where this is feeding in directly to what we're trying to achieve as a company.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a great segue. So I feel like I was talking a lot there about kind of like team and team structure and stuff. But yeah, of course, data and conversion optimization is kind of rooted in a lot of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, in terms of I'd say like there is a risk of kind of getting too much into the algorithm says this, so let's do what that says, right? Because I feel like um, in terms of branding, you want to be able to differentiate yourself, of course. But if you stick out too much, it becomes a little bit too, I don't know, you start to alienate people. You start to not trust the results you're getting just based on how different you actually were. So I would say like there's a couple of things that I look at. One of them is like just benchmarking. So trying to understand what other people do. I think there's always I tend to be that guy in the meeting where it's like, oh, we have a decision to make. What does everybody else do? Right. And we just kind of go through the list of our competitors, of other people in the space, or other people we kind of get inspired by, and then kind of look at what they've done and what their successes have been. So I'd say that's a big part of like having like a data driven approach. I'd say the other thing is a little bit more directional, which is, where do we stand in terms of how we've done on this thing? So for example, I'll just take something like organic traffic. It might not be a great example, just given what's happened in the past year, but typically, as filters get better, you can use that as like, well, are we growing what tends to be the most popular things on our site, for example. So you can kind of base a lot on that, right? And then I'd say the third thing is just like how do you instrument good experiments so that you're always keeping top of mind what you think are actual levers versus like what is actually like having a result. I think for sure it's like something on the homepage, you're going to get some sort of result. I think everybody will be like, what's the first interaction on this page? How many people actually made it all the way through to to payment or a demo, something like that. But there's all these kind of like weird meta things too that happen for tests that you run longer that, don't start out having a conclusion, but over time you just start to get like a sensibility over, oh, this is actually a pattern that works for us. So I would say those kind of three things, you can kind of work that into all three of those kind of, I guess, team pillars I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think every team needs to kind of think through that stuff. I feel like the most important, if I were to call it right now, especially for a brand team, it's like you want to know what the leading indicators are in terms of like what other people are doing, because that's the stuff that tends to be hot, right? That tends to be kind of sexy for an audience, and that's probably the easiest path to just differentiation, like showing up to the party and with the cool hat or whatever. whatever. Um,
Yeah.
so I put a lot of stock in that. I think something like the conversion or just the overall stuff that you look at, that's more, I'd say that's more so the stuff that you're always looking at, that tends to be just more directional. And then the conversion rate optimization, that's kind of like a muscle. So if the team has that kind of developed, you can kind of throw that at everything. I'd say the first one I mentioned of the benchmarking is pretty important.
Awesome. All right. And you alluded to changes within the past year and with AEO, GEO, SEO, insert letter here, EO. What opportunities are you most excited about or anything you're worried about with those changes now having, it's not brand new terminology or brand new concepts, but still in the fairly early days. Anything that you are excited about in those new sort of organic realms?
Yeah, a couple of things. I feel like a lot of folks, especially in tech, we're all dabbling with AI. We're all setting up like our skills and our agents and things like that. I'd say just taking a step back, the big moment was probably when everybody saw big sites. I think HubSpot was like a big one who actually was transparent with their metrics, but like all of their content marketing just falling off a cliff, right? I think for PartnerStack we saw a decline also, but not that much. I would say like it started to go down, at least not like off a cliff. It was more like, oh yeah, this is definitely a haircut across all of our traffic. So I feel like the urgency is kind of there. I think people know like, oh, people aren't necessarily searching Google anymore. I'd say so. The couple of things I am excited about, I think one of them is PartnerStack. I mentioned this earlier, but having like a network of partners who publish stuff, it's actually inherently good for AI visibility, right? We know that AI tends to favor third party content, which means like citations and things like that become very important for third party things. I mean, I think another thing. So I think that's very exciting for us. That's definitely, there's definitely a moment in time right now where we are kind of inviting a lot of our customers to kind of go through this AEO exercise that I think everybody wants to go through. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um, I'd say zooming out, it's like there is probably if you've been around the block, right? Like I'm sure we have. It's like, and you've seen how SEO and kind of Google became the main thing, and all of the tactics that came with that. I'm talking like early 2000s, let's say. You start to see the same kind of pattern. So I think there is excitement in like what is the next innovation, because right now people are kind of min maxing the AEO, right? It's like, oh, how much keywords do you stuff, or how many link backs do you actually need? And, so you end up with like all of these kind of nickel and diming kind of tactics. I think what's interesting, if you look back at SEO, Google with page rank, and they kind of got to a point where it was like largely solved, where it's like there's the right mix of authority and technical implementation of your website and what your content is about and things like that. So I do think that is going to happen with AEO eventually. You already kind of see it if you look at the activity of the AI as it's going through the citations. Some of them are like actually site searches, so it's actually searching the own properties of the brands you're looking up. So I think there will be some sort of solve or reckoning of like how AI is going to kind of get you the right answer or whatever. But I think what's exciting is like, it's going to shake out, but it's not going to be exactly the same. I think, especially how much data that we give AI, it's going to know a lot more about the profile of the person kind of asking. So, which is very different than, the optimizing for one SERP that kind of everybody sees based on like a 3-term keyword or whatever. So I think that's pretty exciting because it almost says not only what the content is about or what is true, it's almost like what are you, who are you? Like,
Yeah.
is this true for you?
Yep. Yep.
So I'd say the PartnerStack thing, the which is us going to AEO and just us being inherently good at it because of our partner network. I'd say there's a lot of like tactics and interesting technology hacks and things like that are kind of floating around. I'd say the third thing, it's like um, uh, with AI and kind of how fast it moves. There's kind of how can I put this? There's almost like a cultural way of how people create content. It's almost
Hmm.
like, right, like, and we see this with politics and everybody has like a personal brand now, and this is how I create content, and what's the line of like spamming the algorithm versus like this is authentically me kind of thing. uh, I feel like it's kind of I don't think it's a bad thing, but I would say that there's a lot of things kind of up in the air right now of like what is actually good content, right? Like it's something that I think about a lot because in my experience and just brand building, it's like we know that good content compounds. The more consistent you are, uh, uh, the more relevant you are for like certain audiences, for certain channels, like that works. It doesn't even matter what the format is. But I think we're getting to a place where it's like it actually does matter a lot, like kind of what the format is and kind of the way it was created. And I think right now creators are probably struggling with the same thing where it's, is AI content that bad? Like if you're like, it's like, oh yeah, it has extra fingers. That was like last year, right? Now it's kind of like, I know it has extra fingers and I kind of like it, and I think
Hmm.
we all see this in like our social media and stuff. So I feel like there's something around that, not necessarily, directly affecting AEO, but definitely adjacent to this whole thing of like what it means to optimize for AI.
Yeah. Charles, thank you so much for sharing your take on all of this, giving us the background on PartnerStack and talking about your philosophy and your approach. Listeners, if you want to learn more about Charles and PartnerStack, details will be in the show notes. Otherwise, Charles, thank you so much for joining me today on Data Planet.
Thanks for having me, Emma.